Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everywhere you are in the world. My name is Marta Lourenço, and I am the chair of UMAC-ICOM's International Committee for University Museums and Collections. And you are watching a series that is called UMAC Origins, that celebrates the history of UMAC since it was created in 2001 at the ICOM General Conference of Barcelona. And today I have with me a very special guest, Peny Theologi-Gouthi. She's from Greece, and she was in the first board of UMAC. She was, I think, treasurer, was it?
I was treasurer at the preparatory board,
Exactly.
and then I was secretary.
And then you were secretary, exactly. Thanks for correcting me. Well, Peny, thank you so much for being here and for, giving us your time to, share something that only you know, which is firsthand experience about the beginning,
Yes.
the origins of UMAC. Perhaps we could start by talking a little bit about yourself, your professional biography. How did you start getting involved in museums, university museums? How did it all begin? Tell us.
First of all, it is a pleasure for me to talk with you and to share my experience with UMAC, with our friends. My history with museums is very, very, very long. It has started when I was a child. I was born in a family where my mother was collecting. She was collecting, in the 60s, many things have changed in Greece.
Of course.
Traditional societies were changing. So as my mother wanted something very creative to do in her life, because her parents didn't let her study at the university. She was trying to find something very creative to do and very interesting. She was starting collecting objects from rural life. So the collections and
ethnography.
Yes.
Ethnography.
Yes. So for me, museums.
Where were you born in Greece?
I was born in the center of Greece, in a little town called Karditsa.
Okay.
This means the small heart, because it's in the center of Greece. And we have many rural societies there. That's how I started. My mother created also a folk group in the city, and traveled a lot in Europe and in other countries. So collections and museums were words in everyday life.
Familiar.
Yes, very familiar. That's why I wanted to deal with museums and ethnography.
But did you collect with her? Were you interested?
Yes. I was going with her. Every Wednesday in the city were a flea market where people from villages were selling products.
Yeah.
And I was going with her there.
Do those flea markets still exist? Is it something that
they exist, but they don't sell those kind of things.
Exactly.
It was during the 60s, from the 60s to end of 70s.
I see.
So my dream was to study something to deal with museums of ethnography. That's why I studied architecture.
Right.
And I was specialized in the design of museums. And I studied ethnology in Paris, because in Greece, we didn't have this specialization at that time. So in Paris,
So when more or less did you go to Paris?
I went in Paris when I finished school.
Yeah.
It was my dream to study in Paris, because my family has a long story with Paris. My grandfather did his specialization in medicine in Paris.
In Paris?
Yes. So I dreamed to go to Paris,
Of course.
It was an opportunity because I could make my dreams come true in Paris.
But did you have family there at the time?
No,
No, you were alone.
No, I was alone.
Wow.
So I studied in Paris in the École Spéciale d'Architecture and ethnology in the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales. So in Paris, while I was doing my diploma for architecture, that was a proposal for a museum, a local museum in my city, the city where I was born. I met ICOM for the first time. It was, yes, in Paris. It was in 1981.
1981.
I went several times in the documentation center of Paris, and I have worked many times there to find material for my diploma.
For your study, of course.
So ICOM was always something I wanted to be in.
Of course, I understand.
Going back to Greece, I got married. My husband was professor at the University of Patras, so I had to move to Patras. And try to find what to do. So I did different things before arriving to the place I was.
At the time, were there many architects specialized in museums in Greece? Were there?
No, not a lot.
It was probably not a lot.
Not a lot. I think 3 or maybe 4. So I was in Patras, and then I got involved in the Folk Art Museum of the city for a while. Then I taught arts education at the university, and it was at the end of 90s. Yes, that the rector, there was a rector at the university that wanted to open the university to society.
Right.
So one of his projects was to create a science and technology museum.
Tell us a little bit more about the University of Patras. Is it an old university? Is it a mid-century?
No. We don't have very old universities in Greece. The University of Patras was founded at 1968, I think.
In the 60s.
In the 60s, yes. So it is not an old university. It's the 3rd university that was created in Greece. The University of Athens is the 1st, then Thessaloniki, and then Patras. It was the 3rd.
Right.
So,
but of course, the university, even in the 60s, created in the 60s, of course, it had scientific heritage, scientific instruments.
Yes, it has a scientific heritage, but it also had collections. Different departments had collections. So the rector invited me to a meeting, and he asked me if I can help the university to develop a science and technology museum. I have to tell you that before my involvement, the university had started an architectural competition for a building. They were thinking that the building is the main thing for a museum, but they didn't succeed because architects were asking what are you going to put in this museum?
Exactly.
What will be the goal of the museum?
You need objects, you need a program,
yeah.
you need, you know, there's so much about a museum other than a building,
okay.
right? Yeah.
So I gave him a proposal on how I was going to deal with that. I was very glad. It was a very big challenge for me.
Right.
And I started. And I started by making the methodological program of the museum.
Of course.
And what architects were needed to make proposals, make the projects.
But did you have, apart from the rector, did you feel a sense of support from other colleagues in the university, professors, researchers? How was it?
I started this project in 1998.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, 98. It was 98. At the beginning, there were a lot of people that supported me, but much more people that were against.
Yeah.
Many professors of the university were thinking that it's useless to have a museum.
Makes no sense, right?
Yes.
It makes no sense.
To understand the situation, the day I have sent an email to the mailing list of the university that the museum is opening in May 2009 with some events. A professor replied to all the university, yes, that the rector, the university, has stuff that is trash and objects that is trash and wants to make a museum.
Yeah.
But
in 2009, Peny.
In 2009, yes. It was very hard. This project was very, very hard. Yeah. And it is still very, very hard. Yeah. We have gained a lot of people with us.
Of course.
Yes. During our opening in 2009, since today, many people accepting the museum's goals and the existence of the museums. And many people support.
And the importance of connecting to society, because museums inscribe in the extension, you know, in the outreach to society. But many of our colleagues in universities, and not only in Greece, still do not see that. It doesn't connect really to, they see the need to establish bridges with society, but museums are not part of that. Other things are part of that.
Yes,
that's the problem.
Yes, but we have made a very good work with society, mostly with education. All the levels we were able, and we are still able, to link the 3 levels of education. Right. We work together with primary and secondary education. We involve students in that
of
work.
The university.
So we give experience to students on education, on creative education. Yeah. And we are very happy because everybody is very happy. We did a research recently, late this month, on how our programs for students, the program of volunteering, the program of internship, and the program of educational competence in the museum, if they are succeeded or not. And we ask in this research if they will propose to another colleague to come to the museum in one of those programs. 98% reply yes.
They would,
Yes.
And incredible.
That's the success.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So, but in a way, the story of your museum is very much why UMAC was created, to try to give a body of knowledge and of understanding, of raising awareness in higher education about the importance of museums.
Yes.
And so
you know, my story, the creation of my museum, my involvement in university museums with the creation of UMAC start again at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
While, yes.
At the beginning, at the creation of your museum, so, and your engagement.
I was involved in ICOM. I was involved in CDOC. I was chair of a working group of CDOC on ethnography. And I was also very active in the Greek ICOM. I was secretary, vice chair for several years and so on.
In the late 1990s. In the late 1990s.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that ICOM is a tool for us.
Yeah.
Is the best tool to exchange experience.
Right.
To see how others are dealing with problems. Mm-hmm. I have to admit that my problem was different from the others because I started in a different way. Exactly. I started at 0 point.
Yeah.
I had nothing in my hand.
From zero, from
yes,
nothing.
I started from zero, but I gained a lot from others' experience.
Of course, of course.
Yes. So when I was involved in the development of the museum, 1 month later, I received a mail from ICOM that
ICOM Paris. ICOM Paris or ICOM Greece? Okay.
ICOM Paris. That in the conference in Melbourne, it will be a meeting on University Museum.
That was 1998.
1998. I started in May, and in June I have received this mail. I was the first to reply to Peter Stanbury.
So Peter Stanbury wrote you. Was it from
Peter Stanbury have sent a mail to Paris, and Paris shared the mail to all members. So when I showed this,
do you still have that email? Because it would be nice to have.
I will try to find it. I don't know I have it. I will try to find it.
Because it would be wonderful to have it in our archives.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it. So I was very glad. I was very, 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 very happy. It was a big chance for me. So I replied.
Why were you happy? You were happy because you found that there exists a community or somebody interested, you know?
Yeah.
Because until that point, you felt kind of alone in the museum sector.
Yes. I didn't have the time to feel alone because it was 1 month later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So having the experience of ICOM, it was a gift for me. And
but what happened? Did you reply to Peter? What happened?
I replied to Peter. I said, I'm interested. And I went to ICOM conference in Melbourne, and Peter had arranged a meeting. So we were
a meeting. So this was the general conference of ICOM.
ICOM, yes.
So the big one.
We had a meeting within
you had a separate.
conference.
Yeah, you had a separate meeting.
Nobody appeared. We were just two, and then somewhere Stephen de Klerk appeared.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we tried after Melbourne. We have exchanged a number of emails.
So that's when you met Stephen de Klerk too.
Yes,
it was in Melbourne.
Yes, it was in Melbourne. So we exchanged a number of mails. I have tried to find the constitution of other international committees. I played I can say the role of a secretary because I have to put together all information we had on committees, and then try to put
because of the three of you were the person more experienced with ICOM because you had been in ICOM exactly. So it was very important because Stephen de Klerk and Peter Stanbury at the time were not that familiar with ICOM Paris and all that. So you provide that experience. What is an international committee? How is it created, and so on. So that was very important, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ICOM, as you know, was against, because some international committees did not
Okay, let's hear
want.
about that in detail, because I've been hearing in these interviews, you know, of UMAC Origins, we've been hearing contradictory view. I mean, of course, there's always some resistance to the creation of new international committees, and I've experienced that later. Okay, so after I became involved with ICOM, I realized that whenever there is a creation of a new international committee, there's always a bit of, you know, oh, why this and not that? Why? So there's always discussion. But what I hear is that there was frank and direct opposition, right? Wasn't it?
Yes, all international committees were against. At the beginning,
how do you know that? Did they write you? Did they write you emails? Was it in an assembly?
Peter was talking with several people within ICOM, and everybody was against.
Why? Do you know?
Why they didn't? They thought that university museums can go in every other international committee: archaeology, ethnography, science museums, and so on.
There is a committee already for every university museum. So ICOM did not understand that there are specific needs and specific that connect all those museums together just because they are in the university, right?
So I was connected all information and put let's say a paper, a working paper for that we were working together, all together. And Peter was going to ICOM headquarters several times to talk and convince ICOM.
To lobby.
Yes, to lobby, exactly.
To lobby for UMAC.
And things started to change. And I think it was in 2000, the meeting in Paris, where many people from university museums were invited. And we have talked about this idea. They were with us, and then I write the constitution of ICOM. I wrote the constitution of ICOM.
Of UMAC,
yes. Peter and Stephen were correcting the constitution, and we have finally arrived to a final constitution that we have proposed to Barcelona.
Right. Okay, so, but there were only 4 years, so it was not that much, the resistance.
It was not much. Yes, it was not. It was not
since
so
1998,
much.
and it was created in 2001. So I mean,
3 years.
Was quick. It was quick.
Yes, it was quick. Yes,
it was quick
because we were quick, and we insisted in creating UMAC.
Yeah, exactly.
We were convinced that it is a need for university museums.
And at the same time, they realized that there was a larger community, right? Because there was the meeting in Paris. And so in Barcelona, there was already, I don't remember, I was in Barcelona, I remember that's when I met you.
Yes,
but that's when I was a young student. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that I don't remember how many people were, but there was some 40 or 50, right? I think.
Yes, 40 people, yes. I think so.
From all over Europe and the world, because there we had people from the US, I remember, from Israel, from Australia, of course.
Australia.
There was Australia, and there was
Australia
Europe.
supported very early.
Much. Very early. And so then we were created. There was the first General Assembly. We approved the Constitution of UMAC, and the work started. And how do you remember? What do you remember of those? Okay, after the creation, there were other difficulties, right? I imagine. So what do you think were the first challenges of those years, of those early years of UMAC?
The first challenge is to see, to register the problems of every university museum, to understand what others are doing and what are their problems and how do they solve them.
Yeah.
And this was the first step that was very, very, very interesting. For me, it was, let's say, a PhD on this experience.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Because I learned how other museums have dealt with the same problems I was facing. I had different problems myself because I had a different procedure, but I could find solutions on what I was hearing or reading. That was the first challenge of UMAC.
And what do you think were the main, if you could, summarize, what do you think that at that time, early 2000s, what were the main problems of university museums?
The problems of university or of UMAC?
No, university museums. What were the main problems?
University museums, yes. We are not visible.
Invisibility.
We have to work with societies.
Yeah.
We have to be more open in many ways. The problem also is the mentality of universities.
Recognition, the thing that we started at the beginning, talking about recognizing the museum as an important tool, right?
Recognition is one thing. The other thing is administration. Because museums are not administrative.
Autonomous and so on.
Yes. So it is always a problem.
And that's a common problem, you think?
Yeah, it's a common in everyone.
Everywhere. That's why UMAC is important, because it can address those problems specifically, right?
Another problem is to convince students to come to the museum.
Right.
But when you convince them to come, they come every time.
Yeah, of course.
They love museums. They don't know what is a museum.
Of course, I agree.
And that's why in my museum, I have developed an educational program for very, very small children.
Right.
From kindergarten to the 2 first classes of primary. What is a museum? They experiment what is a museum,
very interesting.
what the museum is doing, because we have to start for very, very young children.
Yeah, of course. That's very important.
They are not educating. They don't have any education on what the museums are.
What culture, heritage culture, museums, they need to go out and visit. But back to UMAC. Let me ask you something. What were after, of course, you were there in the board, you began in the first board, so there were other annual conferences after Barcelona.
Yes.
I don't remember, I have to check the website. Was it Australia? Australia.
Yes, I have been in Australia.
Australia. So what were the memories? So you visited, not only collected, compiled information about university museums, as you said, and their problems, but you also visited university museums in those first years. What do you remember? Do you have some memories of specific museums that you visited? For example, I don't know, in Europe or Australia? I mean,
Yes. My opinion is that university museums face the same problems.
Yeah.
They are not so visible. They are not accessible.
Yeah.
In some countries, they have very, very open and big museums. University museums. For example, in Korea, they have extremely beautiful museums and open museums.
Yeah.
And we have to be together.
To share.
To share and to be stronger.
Right. when you look at 20 years, okay, now we're in 2021. Of course, 20 years passed since the creation. Do you think that we are generally, as a group, as a collective, a world collective, do you think that in general we are better, we are worse, we are the same problems persist? What is your view about 20
About
years of work together?
of UMAC, you mean?
Yeah, of
Of
the
course,
collective.
of
Yeah,
course, UMAC is getting better and better. It's that's it.
it's
When
getting
you start,
larger,
yes, yes.
larger.
When you start, you don't now know how it will go.
Exactly.
You try to find the problems. We try to talk together. We had at the beginning to find a common language to talk.
Exactly.
That was a very big problem because we didn't talk in the same way. So we had to find how to communicate.
Yeah.
And now this is achieved.
Yeah.
Everybody can talk. There is a common language in UMAC, and that facilitates things.
Facilitating. And in a way, it was just because there was this unity and people brought together and shared things, and then they went back to their museums and saw things differently because they had had conversations with others, saw their experiences, and so there was this machine that in a way, I mean, it kind of did itself just for people being together, right?
Yes, and at the beginning it was most of the time it was a brainstorming.
Yeah.
We still do brainstorming, but we do other things too. It's
exactly.
easier to do other things now.
Yeah. So
and now we have technology that makes things easier.
And also probably professionalization, because a lot of the early were not necessarily museum people, museum professionals. The early members of they had to join ICOM in order to join UMAC. So there was this whole window of professionalization and skills that were specific available of museums that people didn't know about because they were biologists, because they were physicists, because they were so there was this kind of mutual
because everyone was in his world.
Exactly.
That's why
isolated.
I say we had to find a common language to talk together.
Isolated. People felt isolated. And in terms of your museum, now going back to your museum, because I think that's also a very important experience that you can share. How did ICOM and specifically your presence in the board of ICOM, one ICOM committee, how did it help internally in your university in Patras?
Sometimes it helped, sometimes no. It depends of the rectors, of the situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is. We don't have a stable situation.
That's still one of the most dramatic problems, isn't it? It depends so much on the rectors, the university presidents, and if they are sensitive, if they are aware of the importance of museums or not, because and that creates a vulnerability. It's very unstable. That's right.
To clarify that, I have to tell you that I was always paying my
travel. You didn't have the support.
10% of support in some travels. I always paid my traveling cost.
That doesn't happen with other museums.
That's why I have disappeared from many conferences.
Of course.
Because I had to pay.
At some point it becomes very, very tough, to respond if you don't have the support of the institution. That's right. So final question, how do you see you know, UMAC, and more important than UMAC, the collective of university museums, I don't know, in 20 years, do you see the universities more and more recognizing the importance of museums, recognizing the importance of society? Do you think it will be, we have kind of a nice, bright path ahead, or not so much? What do you think?
I will tell you what I hope,
Yeah, okay. That's
not how I can see. I
Mhm.
hope that university museums will open,
Yeah,
will be more open to society,
yeah,
to work with society, to do things with society. That's how they will play their role to serve the university and society
yeah,
at the same time,
yeah,
because they have to serve society.
exactly. I think that's very
From
important.
my experience, it is a very great offer to society to work with students, with school groups, and with different parts of society in order to create things and to
Right.
propose things to others.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I hope all university museums everywhere in the world will open and will be more creative.
Fantastic. We couldn't finish with a better, you know, wish for the future, which I share. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Penny. Thank you
Thank you,
for being
Marta.
with us. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and this will add to the testimonies that we're collecting about
It was
the.
great talking with you,
It
seeing
was
you.
lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.